Hello, welcome to Studies in Theatre MOOC program. Today we are going to discuss Theatre of Roots in India. Now we move further. So students, you have come across various aspects of theatre in Indian culture. Now what is the need of discussing something called Theatre of Roots? This is a very interesting kind of a process that is visible in post-independent Indian theatre practice because this is a conscious process through which a kind of theatre practice has evolved wherein modern theatre styles have been made to adjust to facilitate the traditional Indian theatre cultures, the indigenous classical, indigenous folk theatre practices of India, and a fusion of a very deliberate kind has been created to achieve that version of theatre practice where even in the urban areas, even in the urban cultures, audience are able to enjoy the classical, indigenous, traditional folk theatre performances presented in structured formats of modern theatre practices. For this purpose, this theatre of roots needs to be studied. Now, there are various aspects connected to the theatre of roots movement. And the first and foremost that you should keep in mind are the reclamation of cultural identity. Because this movement aimed to reclaim India's cultural identity by exploring and reviving indigenous forms of theatre. Practitioners delved into diverse regional traditions, including folk performances and classical Sanskrit drama. And they tried to reconnect it with India's rich heritage. This was aimed at decolonizing Indian theatre. Central to the movement was the rejection of the colonial and Western centric influences in Indian theatre. By challenging dominant Western norms and aesthetics, Indian theatre, there was a need for, it was sought to decolonize Indian theatre and promote authentic, culturally relevant storytelling performance practice. So, traditional forms are looked to be explored, where things like Bharatnatyam, Kathakali, Kuchipudi, and similar various other regional performance traditions are revisited for a purpose of presenting them in the modern structures. It seeks inspiration from rituals, myths, legends, and historical events deeply embedded in Indian culture. So, we need to look at the cultural authenticity. The movement emphasizes on the cultural authenticity and its fidelity to cultural elements because performances often incorporate traditional music, costumes, languages, and storytelling techniques so that they can be evoked with a sense of cultural resonance and authenticity. In order to also create a social relevance for all these kinds of existing cultural practices, this movement has been very fruitful because it draws from the past and it addresses contemporary issues and concerns faced by Indian society. It also serves as a platform for social commentary. It critiques societal norms and creates a voice and space for parallels within historical narratives and the cultural symbols. It involves community participation. Many theatre of roots productions have displayed how community participation is so crucial, and they have drawn helps from local communities, sometimes also encouraging the audience to engage in the activity of performance. This therefore fosters a sense of inclusivity and collective ownership of the cultural heritage being portrayed. The key element to this kind of theatre practice is experimentation and innovation because It is rooted in experimentation, yet it is not some kind of vegetated or stagnant method, because it encourages the dynamism of experimentation, constantly doing innovations, and blending traditional forms with contemporary theatrical techniques, and also of course incorporating all those things which are available in the present times, like multimedia intervention, artistic influences from very diverse backgrounds. So this makes the whole atmosphere of performances in this culture very compelling. Then the preservation of culture and revival of culture has been one of the significant tenets of this movement, because by showcasing the art forms that this movement incorporates, it has helped to keep them alive. Then various practitioners of this movement are known for their works, their commendable works, and what you see written here on the screen is reclamation of cultural identity. So after giving you this overall overview of the whole scenario, now when I come back to this idea of cultural reclamation of cultural identity, I must say that Theatre of Roots movement is aimed to reconnect with India's cultural heritage, and which had been overshadowed by colonial and the Western influences for a long time. So practitioners in this in plays explored various regional traditions, Nautanki, Bhand Pathar, Tamasha, and classical traditions like Kalidas and Bhash's plays. And through these various kinds of explorations, movement was looking to revitalize and preserve the indigenous forms of theatre, and at the same time celebrating the very rich atmosphere and diverse flavor of the cultural landscape of India. And by embracing the traditional storytelling techniques, music, dance, there was also a cultural identity and pride assertion among the audience. Then, when you look at decolonizing Indian theatre, how does it decolonize? Because practitioners rejected colonial norms and the models of aesthetics during the British colonial era that had started ruling the Indian scenario, and also but they were forced onto us. And the movement therefore had a significant decolonizing agenda or decolonial agenda, because it was looking to diffuse the Western centric influence on the Indian performance spaces. And what led to this is, the traditions of India and the practices that were there in the small parts of India, interiors of our villages, rural areas, they were sought to be made mainstream pleasures and mainstream modes of celebrating our ethos, celebrating our identity, and other things. So it led to a kind of India's cultural sovereignty, and creating a theatre that reflected the lived experiences of cultural practices that had become obsolete because of the colonial intervention. Then democratization of theatre also is one of the significant aspects of Theatre of Roots movement, because this movement emphasized on community engagement, people's participation, and how people should come together to put up a performance, to take up the performance forward. So these aspects are the aspects of democratization that this kind of theatre propagated. Marginalized voices also found an assertive space, and they started representing their own value systems, their own performance cultures. And this was therefore a significant contribution of democratization of theatre, seen through various perspectives. Then it also is a celebration of how empowerment and representation can be achieved, because when you provide a platform to marginalized voices to be heard and to be represented, the movement therefore empowers the communities to tell their own stories, but on their own terms. And this emphasis on representation and empowerment challenged existing power structures within theatre industry, where certain voices and narratives had historically been privileged over the others. So, through the democratization of theatre making, practitioners aim to shift the balance of power and create a more inclusive and equitable cultural landscape where diverse voices were celebrated and valued. So this is about the democratization of theatre. Then in the post-independent era in 1947, this started, especially when our own government was formed and Indians had the opportunity to engage in administration directly. So integration of traditional elements was asserted, asserting the unique identity of India. These kinds of slogans, these kinds of discourses started doing the rounds to discuss the cultural framework of our administrative policy that was strictly taking it forward. So, cultural renewal and innovation, and this blending, therefore, was very crucial. It integrated elements from classical dance, religious rituals, martial arts, Sanskrit classical history, classical theory, aesthetic theory, and also the modern European theatre with traditional Indian performance, but not at the cost of losing one's identity. So this movement in post-independence era was consciously propagated to create an indigenous theatre that integrated elements from traditional Indian performance while asserting its unique identity distinct from colonial influence. Then in other aspects, when we look at, who are the key figures, and this is the most important part of this discussion because the major people who were participating included K.N. Panikkar, Girish Karnad, Ratan Thiyam, and they were all contributing in their own ways to the establishment of this particular theatre school or theatre discourse or theatre narrative. Also, the cultural bodies like Sangeet Natak Academy, National School of Drama, they had a crucial role to play. I will come on to their role again in the discussion. But first of all, let us talk about these three stalwarts whose name have figured. K.N. Panikkar his full name is Kavalam Narayan Panikkar, playwright, scholar, theatre director. He contributed very significantly to the corpus of theatre of roots because he was known for his efforts to revive and reinterpret classical Sanskrit dramas and folk theatre traditions, infusing them with contemporary relevance. Then Girish Karnad's name is also very popular and his name is also associated with this narrative, this discourse, because he was instrumental in bridging the gap between traditional Indian theatre and modern theatrical forms. His works often explored themes rooted in Indian mythology, history, and culture. I'm sure you have read his plays where he talks about Yayati, he talks about Tughlaq, he talks about Haivadan. So, plays which are inspired from various texts like Mahabharata or plays about historical figures or Katha Sarit Sagar. So these are some of his crucial plays, and they are also socio-political plays which connect to the sentiments of the times that we are living in. Then Ratan Thiyam is a celebrated theatre director and playwright known for his innovative blend of traditional Manipuri performance elements with modern theatrical techniques. As the founder of Chorus Repertory Theatre of Manipur, Thiyam has been at the forefront of theatre of roots movement, creating powerful and visually stunning productions that draw inspiration from Manipuri culture and society. In addition to this, these two societies, National Sangeet Natak Academy established in 1952 and National School of Drama established in 1959, have also a very important role to play in the whole process. Erin Mee's name has already been taken by me and he has contributed significantly to the understanding and appreciation of Indian theatre, including this movement, and her extensive experience within and outside India leads to having contributions of key figures and institutions in the development of Indian theatre. Then B.V. Karant's vision for regional theatre. B.V. Karant, who is a pioneering figure in Indian theatre, he also had a very distinctive vision for regional theatres. Here is what he advocates, he believes that we need to reject the notion of a homogeneous national theatre, because India cannot have one theatre as a representation of Indian theatre, Indian sensibility, which is so diverse. And he believed in the promotion and projection of various regional theatre cultures. And he also he also postulated and practiced that India's strength lies in its diversity, and therefore their theatre should reflect the myriad cultures, languages, and traditions present across the entire country. And he also believed in incorporating the voices of the marginalized in the discussion of the theatre practices, uh, challenging the dominance of mainstream, often urban centric narratives in theatre. Then he also has worked a lot to integrate the diversified art forms into theatre productions, because these art forms and art practices could not be shaped or could not be presented in the form of theatre productions, and he worked a lot for them because he emphasized the use of music, choreography, dialects, costumes, and colors to evoke the essence of regional cultures on the stage of modern world. This interdisciplinary approach led to enrich the theatrical experiences for audience as well, because at multiple levels they were able to connect with the cultural diversity of their country. Karan's vision has, cultural authenticity and enrichment as his mood points, because he rejects superficial portrayals of regional identities. Rather, he wants and he has done a lot for the nuanced and respectful representations. Instead of museumization of the regional theatres, he believes in nuanced representation and encourages the practitioners to dive deep into the cultural milieu of the regions rather than just to cosmetically practice some kind of theatre forms for couple of weeks or months and then forget about it. So he wants people of theatre to locally engage with people of a region, local communities, and learn their mannerisms, learn about their work culture, their ethics, their moralities, their problems, and then that leads to authenticity and fidelity in the productions. So Karan sought to cultivate, a sense of confidence, pride, and a sense of belonging among the audience while fostering very cross-cultural networking of understanding and appreciation as far as the theatre practice is concerned. In addition to this, his goal is also to empower the traditional forms, because he thinks that folk theatre forms possessed a specific kind of energy and the spirit that can captivate the audience in a very unique way. And every time it can be unique. It is not unique only in one viewing or the other, but it can be unique in so many ways. So he promotes the incorporation of this regional aspects. He wants people to harness this energy of the indigenous performance spaces, indigenous performance traditions, so that the audience can also enjoy these kinds of productions. And as I told you that he seeks to integrate the traditional forms into a modern theatrical experience where people can sit in proscenium theatre and watch something that was done and performed in open spaces or village fields, etc. So he was not averse to making a little changes in the storytelling techniques and music and dance and visual aesthetics from the traditional forms, and then mixing them up in a as a resource, as a reservoir of artistic potential for the modern performances. So he propagated the upliftment and showcasing of potential strength that was there in the that is there according to him in the Indian performance traditions, and he therefore contributed a lot in the preservation and revitalization of Indian performance traditions. His contributions can be looked at as exploration of regional traditions, integration of traditional forms, as I just now told you, And Panikar's contribution of Theatre of Roots movement, if you want to discuss, you will have to say that he is one of the revivalists, and his very significant work with Kudiyattam, Kathakali, Kalari Payattu, that breathes life into these ancient art forms, and they are now known, they are celebrated, they are studied across India and beyond. His scholarly approach is actually very important for the classical traditions to allow them to be understood with their nuances and complexities, because more than just the love for these forms, it is also required to understand that there is a need for scholarly approach to dissect and interpret the power of these forms for the purpose of sustenance in future. And that is what Panikar's approach leads to, because he not only looks at them as something to be preserved, but he is also able to scholarly identify and talk about them. And his therefore innovative approach is very crucial in even giving a new life to lesser known art forms, where and making them loved by people across the country. He has been very he is known for reviving Kudiyattam's role, and then he also played role because Kudiyattam gained the recognition as a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage of humanity, and that was to highlight its significance as a living tradition with deep historical roots. So these innovative productions that Panikar undertook, they were based on storytelling techniques, music, choreography, stage design, that expanded the boundaries of traditional theatre while staying true to the core and soul of those practices without disturbing them. He very uniquely takes it forward. Then other aspects, as I told, his unique directorial practice fused diverse cultural influences, creating a distinct idiom rooted in India's rich heritage. And his productions exemplified a harmonious blend of traditional storytelling techniques, physical training methods, and aesthetic principles, contributing to the evolution of the Theatre of Roots movement. Now we come to the role of Sangeet Natak Academy, which institutionalization of the roots movement. The Central Sangeet Natak Academy played a very pivotal role because it had a mandate from the government for the promotion and development of Indian dance, music and theatre. And it also included identifying and supporting talented artists, preserving traditional art forms, and promoting cultural exchanges both within India and internationally. So this became a platform for engagement because it provided practitioners to be involved with various kinds of people to showcase their work and to work with them through exchange of ideas and make their forms, make their work be approachable and be researchable and be accessible to various kinds of people in the world of theatre love and theatre enthusiasm. This renewed the interest of Indians and the theatre lovers to document, archive, and disseminate information about traditional Indian theatre forms. So, this was a very significant move. And then promotion and recognition, that is something that should go without saying because its name is Sangeet Natak Academy. So it provides fellowship to practitioners of various theatre traditions, and they promote them, they support them. It also supported cultural exchange and collaboration from different countries, and it promotes dialogue between various traditions of cultural practice, performance practice, that leads to cross pollination of ideas, and that also creates innovative works that reflect the power of interactive nature in the tapestry of Indian performance culture. So, under the guidance of Dr. Suresh Avasthi, Sangeet Natak Academy emphasized the rediscovery of Indian traditional folk art and folk art forms in contemporary theatre practice. They also patronize a lot of people, and that was always been helpful. I'm sure you have heard the name of this organization, because this organization is also present in its regional form in state governments. So those, it has its regional offices also, and therefore it is looking to work for all kinds of things. Instead of forging a national theatre culture, this organization works for the theatre practices in all parts of India by looking them and preserving them in their true essence. There was a specific momentum in the seventh decade in the evolution of the roots movement, because uh, of the activities that were there, heightened activity, and lot of exploration was being done. So it led to a kind of very celebratory mode in the theatre of roots space, and you can see that it culminates in seventh decade, that is in 70s, 1970s, because practitioners had started begun in extensively interacting with peripheral art traditions of India. They were embracing wide range of regional performance styles and practices, and including them, but not limited to Lok Dharmi, that is folk theatre, and Natya Dharmi, classical theatre. This interaction with tradition enriched practitioners' artistic palette, it also gave them with a diverse array of tools and techniques to draw upon in their theatrical expressions. Some inspirations from diverse sources can also be attributed for the for this, heightened glory or heightened mood of this movement in 70s, because various kinds of hybridized theatre practices had also started emerging, and that made it even more rich. And this led to also towards the contribution in hybrid theatre practices, where new age culture was being sought by the audience and it was being provided to audience. So this is about that, and then how the renewed expression, renewed theatrical traditional forms are there. You can see that I have given you the points in order to provide you a set, very grammatically. Sorry. You can see that I'm giving you these points in an elaborate manner, so that you can understand how these things are so crucial, that this traditional and contemporary practices need to be constantly practiced, need to be constantly encouraged. It also is an important aspect of a kind where stagnation needs to be challenged, because if it happened for once in the past, it doesn't mean that it has to attain a certain set goal or set ideal. It has to keep working in order to reach a certain level, and therefore rediscovery and reinterpretation have to be constantly performed. So this is about how the revivalist instincts are so important. Pioneering productions of this movement are also to be understood because of the exploration of regional traditions, innovative interpretations. Various new plays were produced, and various new activities were available for people to attend to. Then regional theatre revival can also be attributed to National School of Drama, because their alumni played a significant role in reviving various kinds of cultural performance practices uh, which were available in different parts of country, and the members of National School of Drama, the students of National School of Drama would come from these different parts of the country, and there they would take back with them this practice and training to revitalize, revive, preserve, reconstruct, and reshape the different indigenous performance cultures and traditions that existed in the area where they belong to. So this is all that I have to say. You can see some beautiful pictures that have gone along with this discussion. So this is the all about Theatre of Roots movement. Now I've given you the links from where I've taken these pictures. So thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed this discussion. My intention in giving you this idea was not to make your attention focused on one or two plays. And that is the reason that I did not name any plays or texts in this, because Theatre of Roots movement, if it is centered on one kind of play or the other kind of the play, then it leads to certain centrality or centrism, and that's what this movement fights against. You need to understand it in its essence, that this particular theatre movement is looking to create a bridge, a fusion, and a coexistence of tradition and modernity, with the aim to assert tradition and its signification in right manner, without diluting it, without having to make any compromise, and also not to distort it to suit the neat shelves of urban cultures. So this is the spirit of that. Try to go back and revisit the cultural practices of performance that are visible in your surroundings. Still, there are so many cultural theatre cultures, performance practices in our country, in regional spheres, that have remained unnoticed, that have not been discussed. They need to be brought into the discussion arenas, they need to be brought into academic spaces for the contribution that they have made in enriching the lives of people culturally, and in the sense of ideas. So have your mind sharp enough, prepare it, observe these things, and make attempts to delve deep into the homogenized atmosphere of theatre practice. That only then this the discussion of this kind will make sense. Theatre of Roots movement existed in the past, its results are visible today, therefore this movement will always be there. Okay, thank you so much. I hope you have enjoyed this discussion. Now I meet you in a different lecture. See you.